Hello my friends, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my channel and another STAMPtember exclusive 2025 video. This collaboration is with Newton's Nook and it's the Skate Paw-ty stamp set. And as always, I'll have links to all the things in the description box below, and the limited edition collab sets are while supplies last. If you're into Newton's Nook though, worth checking out. I'll have a link to their line at Simon Says Stamp because it's so cute. These characters, adorable. And there's so many to choose from. And yeah, I stamped them onto Neenah Classic Crest not Desert Storm. I always want to say Desert Storm. Classic Crest Solar White 110-pound cardstock with Simon Says Stamp's new black ink that I keep telling y'all. Giving it a good run this month to really see, test it out. So I stamped the images with that black ink. This time I'm using my OLO markers. Hopefully I will remember after I've got this uploaded to post my playlist at the end of this video using these markers. Just heads up for anyone that might not have seen any of my previous videos using them. I use them like this, like as half markers. They come with connectors. You can connect them so it's a normal sized marker. I use them like this because of my OCD and just having them left as half markers. I can see all the colors. That's the only reason why. And because I've been holding out, waiting on the release of the fine tips, because they said they were going to do that some point this year is what I had heard. We'll see. I'm not too concerned about it. But yeah, I call these my little stublets, and I don't have a problem with it. I have hand issues and wrist issues. I don't have a problem with this, but you can connect the markers. It's fine. My coloring is really simple. I sped this up quite a bit, but with the exception of one combo, I just did 2 color blends with all of this. And this was actually also the first time I colored on the Neenah Classic Crest Solar White 110-pound, because there's many different types of Neenah cardstock. But this is the first time I colored on this cardstock with these markers. So far so good. And first time I use these markers with that Simon black ink. I've used it with Copics. Previous STAMPtember video, I also did watercoloring with it, like stamped with the black ink and then watercolored with Pawsitively saturated inks. And now trying it out with the OLOs. So far the ink is doing wonderfully, holding up great. So, like I said, I kept my coloring fairly simple. Just the 2 color blends. Didn't feel like overdoing it. Also, because I was doing all 3 images and just did 3 cards for this. Didn't have to, but as usual, I couldn't decide because I was like, there are critters on skates, you know? I love their little dog critter, images, and this cat, they're so cute. They're so cute. So I also kept the color combos for all of them the same, with kind of like a navy and blue and then a hint of red sort of a combo. And yeah, I don't have anything groundbreaking to share about any of the coloring other than it went well. I will say, I can't remember if I mentioned it in the other videos, but with this black ink, I did heat set it. You could probably just let it air dry, but I don't have time for that. So when I stamp the images, and I do this almost always, I just never really think to mention it because the reason I do it is because I stamp and I'm immediately going into coloring. I'm not going to stamp and let it sit and dry and fiddle and whatever. I stamped it and then I just used my heat tool to just make sure it was dry, and yeah, it held up great. I didn't have any issues. That little pink combo I used on the insides of the cat's ears, that was the only one I did 3 shades. Everything else was just 2, and it worked. It worked. So once I got to the end of coloring these, I pulled out my white gel pen and added all the little highlights. As usual, not really following any sort of light source. I just stick them wherever I think they're going to look good, And it's always fun after, the coloring alone, brings everything to life and adds so much character and dimension. And then the gel pen just really, takes it up another notch even. So once I was done coloring all of these and adding the little highlights, I die cut them with the coordinating wafer dies. And then I pulled out some oldie but goodie favorites, specifically the Cheery Snowflakes embossing folder. Love it. This one came out a couple years ago, something. I think it was part of a card kit. It's still available. Like with everything else, I'll have links. I ran it through my die cut machine with pieces of Simon's Steel cardstock. It's like a very blue-gray shade. So I embossed the panels with that, and then I trimmed them down a bit so they're about 4 by 5¼ inches. And then to build more like depth and also to make them a little more blue, I pulled out Dusk Positively Saturated ink, and I'm using one of the new Waffle Flower background blender brushes that I've already done a video kind of showing these, and I just said in that one, like, I'll be using these more, playing with them. For something like this, like any blending brush will work. It doesn't matter. But these are shiny and new, and I want to play with them. So I'm just inking around the perimeter with this ink. And the nice thing about having your cardstock like as a color versus just white, and then adding color like this, is it's a lot less work, because you've already got a color in the cardstock, and then it's just how much dimension and depth you want to build. So I kind of worked my way around the edges with this Dusk shade of ink. And then whatever was kind of left on my brush, I was even picking it up like off my work surface there, just that little bit. I just kind of swirled it in the center. It's not really doing much, but it gives it that little extra something. Could stop here. Always remember though, and I've talked about this, when you're blending dye inks onto cardstock that's not white, is the ink will always look darker while it's wet. So if you're looking for a certain, you want a certain look or a certain depth, test it on a scrap and let it fully dry. Do I do that? Hardly ever. But I just mention it because sometimes you'll be like, oh, I love, this. And then you come back to it later and it's like, oh, it looks completely different. And that's because it's fully dried. So after I'd added that first shade, I then went in with Night, which is like more of a navy shade, and blended that around the edges as well. And then did the same thing, just kind of swirled whatever was left into the centers, again, to just add that more of that blue. And then once I had done that with all of the panels, because I made 3 cards, because I couldn't stop myself. We're going to add some white splatter, because these are all going to be holiday cards, so it's fitting, especially with the snowflakes. So I'm using the Simon Says Stamp Positively Perfect White Splatter Medium, and stirred that up really well. Put 2 of the panels into my splat box, used my trusty fan brush, and added a pretty heavy amount of splatter to these backgrounds, keeping more of it towards sort of the top portion. Again, you can't fully control splatter. The more you do it though, the more you get used to it, and whatever type of brush you're using, whatever type of medium you're using, you can sort of predict where it's going to go within reason. But it always has a mind of its own. So I just added just a good amount of splatter to these and then set them aside to dry, and then did the same thing with the final panel, and it just gives it that little extra something. So I did all of my splattering, cleaned off my brush, put the lid on that positively perfect white splatter so I don't knock that over, because it's only a matter of time, always. And after I let it dry, I wrapped the panels with some red and white baker's twine, reverse tweezers for the win, as always, to hold my knot in place so I can sit and fiddle, get that bow the way I want it. And then once I'm happy with it, you pull it tight, remove the tweezers, pull it tight again, zhuzh it a little bit more, then trim off the tails. And then my sentiments, I trimmed down sentiment strips from the CZ Design Winter pack, instead of using the one, like the stamp sentiments that come in the little stamp set. I use these instead. So I just trim them down into strips, and then I'm adhering those as well as the critters using Simon's Big Mama foam tape, just to, push it up a little bit, build it a little bit of dimension without going completely overboard. So put that on the back of them, and then I'm going to adhere the sentiment strips like above and below my baker's twine, and then adhere my little character. And he's just I love them. I love the little Newton's Nook characters. I just think they're adorable. So I did that. And then I die cut some scraps of white cardstock using the Snowflake frame die set, which, as I'm doing this voiceover, I'm pretty sure that's the die set I used last year too, specifically with the Newton's Nook, like 2024 STAMPtember set. I didn't have a chance to like double check because I'm just in a million things on my plate, but I think that's what I did. I know I used it last year, but I also think it was with the Newton's Nook, which just makes it funny because I just needed snowflakes. So anyway, I adhered those, to finish it all off. On the inside of the cards, I had just stamped the same character with Simon's Marine ink, so just a lighter blue shade, and then adhered one of those little sentiment strips. All of my cards are just top folding A2 white note cards, so 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. And yet again, I used one of the A2 Postage Rectangles because obsessed with them. And I die cut slate cardstock with that, and then adhered that to the card base, adhered the card front, and then my final little embellishment is just some red clay hearts. It just, again, pulls in that little bit of red because, I've got the red of their accessories, the baker's twine, and then the little clay hearts just to finish them off. And then once I have those glued into place, these cards are complete. So, like I mentioned in the intro, all the links to all the things are in the description box below the video. So if you expand that, you can check it all out below. I'll have the links to this limited edition set, again, just while supplies last, but also to the Newton's Nook brand, because if you're not familiar with them, worth checking out, because they're so fun and they're so cute. Love. And then everything else, of course. So that will all be below. As always, thank you all so very much for hanging out with me, for thumbs upping and commenting, letting them robot overlords know you like what you see. I know I joke about that, but it's also very true and I very much appreciate it. It does help. Subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you. And I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye. Thank you so much to my amazing Patreon supporters. For anyone that might be interested in joining my Patreon community and supporting me, the link to my Patreon is in the description box below the video. For everyone else, as always, thank you all so much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you. And here's a couple other videos for you to check out in case you missed them. Bye!